So this almost echoes what Peter mentioned in the beginning. Real quickly, this is not generic data. This is actually our data on our network, on our current SWIFT broadband network, which many of the aircraft flying today have. Some of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years with SWIFT broadband, and this is going to be on anywhere from a BBJ all the way down to King Air, but a lot of them are Gulfstream, Globals, Challengers, and Falcons. The biggest thing that we've seen is our SWIFT broadband network, which went live in 2008. And I'll take a step back. We have been providing connectivity to aircraft since the early 90s, starting with Aero Classic. And we do connect the majority of aircraft today for fans, for cockpit communications, and now for cabin communications as well, especially in business aviation. So back since 2008, you can see we've shown the aircraft count grow tremendously. Once you actually make the technology available to provide high-speed communications globally, people are now demanding it, expecting it, and now they're asking for more. So we've seen that data. We've seen the aircraft numbers grow, and then that middle graph just shows the data growth per aircraft per year. So once you make it available, people are going to use it. And we've had a lot of folks come by, even now, asking what's next. And what's next? We've got the future now. The biggest thing that we're seeing is that the demand for bandwidth is increasing, supply flexibility. So as Peter mentioned, I'm going to talk about our next generation satellites, which are now up in the air. It gives a lot more capacity at a much lower cost per bit globally. And the cost to equip and serve is now dropping. So depending on, it doesn't matter what type of size aircraft you have, the real question is what's your mission, how far do you want to go, what's going to be the right solution. You've got a lot of folks up here that have different solutions. So there's going to be something that meets your needs. In case you don't know Inmarsat, and I won't go through all of this in detail, the biggest thing that we've done and pioneered is global connectivity. So we do have a global footprint around the globe, and we've now on our 5th generation satellites, but up until today, we focused in what we call the L-band frequency range, which is required for safety services, all of the cockpit communications, and now we're moving into Ka with our next generation satellite. Biggest thing is this is all we do. We only provide connectivity to things that move. We started in maritime many years ago, moved into aviation in the 90s, and now connect to helicopters, people with phones, ISAT phones, anything that moves. We don't support any satellite TV broadcasts. We don't support folks at their home. We only do mobile connectivity. And we've actually built up a lot of IP around how to do that seamlessly so that as you're flying, your VIPs, they have no idea if you're moving between spot beams within a satellite range. They have no idea. The system just keeps working. And that's another thing that we hang our hat on is quality of service. It takes a long time to figure out. It took us 35 years to get to this point where we figured out how to manage capacity across the satellites. And the key is you don't have to worry about the technology. You just have to understand your VIP, when they get in that aircraft, they expect to have a certain level of service, and they expect that level of service to continue from the time they get in to the time they get off. The last thing I'll point out there, multiple technology platforms. Since SWIFT broadband took off for us in aviation in 2008, I kind of mentioned before that from an Inmarsat perspective, our biggest core market has been maritime. 2008, aviation took off with SWIFT broadband. The last couple of years, even our board has now finally realized that aviation is what is going to be the biggest growth driver for us as an organization for the next 10 years. And so for the first time ever, we have our next generation satellites out called Global Express, the I-5s. We actually have it at our booth. But we're actually building, we got access to spectrum in Europe. We're actually building an European aviation network that also utilizes air-to-ground in Europe. And we're actually putting all of our resources to bear to bring to you a great experience globally. And we're looking to add even more capacity as we move. So this is kind of what it looks like. I won't get into any technical details, but I can. I mean, you can definitely ask questions, and we do have our booth here too. But we're actually running. You'll see on the far right-hand side that piece that says Ka-band Global Express. We actually call it Jet Connects in business aviation. I forgot to change that on the slide. But the key is you can actually now come to our booth. We have it running here live. And we have Netflix running in HD, and we had a demonstration yesterday. We have 4 other devices streaming movies at the same time. The whole key is now you can actually get that in-home experience in your aircraft, wherever you're at in the world. That's what we're bringing. We still are focusing heavily too on even our current L-band system. You've heard of safety services, you've heard of Aero Classics with broadband. We're continuing to evolve that to bring more capacity to customers on smaller aircraft, because I will say that this new system, the i5 system, takes a tail mount antenna or kind of a large fuse mount antenna, so if you're flying a King Air, it's going to be kind of difficult. That's where you've got Swift broadband available, depending on where you fly. There's like I said, there's a solution now for every aircraft, fixed wing and now helicopter as well. And then the lower left, you'll see European Aviation Network. So we know now that airlines are asking for this as they fly over Europe. We're even going to be able to bring it to much smaller aircraft, similar to what Voco has done in North America. We're going to be doing the same thing in Europe with an air-to-ground system. You may have noticed that we had a public, some PR come out recently. We have a deal with Deutsche Telekom that's going to build the ground network, and we actually have a launch customer in Lufthansa in their fleet, and as well as British Airways. So this is what it looks like. So one of the biggest things that we're celebrating right now is that it has taken us actually around a year and a half too long. We had some issues with our launch rocket, the Proton launch rocket. We had satellites sitting on the ground waiting to go up. They're now finally all up in the air, and we're communicating to all of them, and we're about to turn on the service for Jet Connects. So I don't know if anyone noticed, but on the first day of the show yesterday, William Shatner flew in on a Bombardier Global, and he actually tweeted in air over the Jet Connect service and actually streamed video. And then there was a press conference here yesterday morning, so I got to get my picture next to Captain Kirk, which is pretty cool. But it just proves that we now have this technology up in the air that keeps everyone connected just as they're connected at home. And it's actually really, really cool. And we know that the customers, all the operators out there finally, they expect that level of experience wherever they fly. And in business aviation, unlike an airline where you have a set route and you know exactly where you're going to fly every day, business aviation, you have no idea where you're going to go. I think that's one of the biggest differences we bring, is that we give you that global coverage and that global consistency. And I'm going to try to end early. One of the things that we do, especially in business aviation, you may not hear Inmarsat too much in the market, because we go to market through our partners. We've got partners that bring the terminals, the hardware to the aircraft, and we also have partners that sell the service. You'll notice there are distribution partners on the left-hand side, some of which are here in the room. I think we actually have someone right here on the panel as well. So you've probably heard of them: Satcom Direct, Eric Direct, now part of Rockwell Collins, GoGo, Satcom One, now part of Honeywell, and of course CETA on Air. We've got terminal partners as well. And I'll just say one last thing again. I mean, with all of the pieces and all of the network infrastructure that we're bringing to bear, we want to make sure that we meet customers' needs, regardless of what size aircraft you fly, what your mission is, and where you fly. And the biggest thing too, as I mentioned, since our board has now said this is the biggest growth driver for us, we're already looking at adding more KA capacity where we need it, before we need it, which is the key. And we're going to continue to do that and continue to bring resources so that when you put on this next generation system, you're going to get the same level of performance, and we guarantee that performance for the life of that airframe, and actually longer.